Everybody, thank you all for joining us here today. Probably one of the most important speakers I'm going to introduce here in just a moment. Erlene's going to share her story, a little bit about her journey. But this issue around domestic violence, and particularly the spike that we've seen in domestic violence homicides this year in Columbus, really was the center of discussion. Director Rena Shack, our new Director of Office Violence Prevention, hosted a town hall about a month ago at Columbus Public Health. And this issue definitely was one discussed where the community wanted more immediate action and wanted to play a role in helping to make our city safer, particularly for family members, women, children, families in domestic violence situations. And that's what today's response, collective community action is all about. But I think it's important to hear directly from Erlene to help us better understand the challenges that so many women and families face in our community. Please welcome Erlene.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mrs. Erlene, and I'm about to tell you my story of my abuse. My name is Erlene. I am a survivor of domestic violence. I endured 33 years of abuse from my husband as well as his family. You may wonder why I stayed for so many years, and there is really no simple answer. When I was in it, it was so hard to see how bad it all was. The abuse had robbed me of my self-esteem. I was told that I was nothing. I was told that I didn't matter. And the more I was told these things, the easier it became to believe them. I like to see the good in other people, so it was easier for me to believe them. It was so hard for me to see that someone was so bad, even they were doing bad things to me. I only wanted love, but that isn't what I got from my husband and his family. Instead of love, I got a gun pointed at my head. I was beaten. My husband's mother tried to stab me, but she did stab me. I remember praying over and over, God, I don't want to die. I knew I had to do something because I wanted to. I wanted my life to change. I wanted to live. I wanted to heal. I wanted to be safe. I decided that I needed to escape my abuser and go to Choices. This decision saved my life. Truly, it has. Choices gave me safety, shelter, and all the resources I need to rebuild my life. It was Choices that I connected to a counselor who gave me the tools I needed to begin to heal. I learned about my triggers and how to deal with them. I became very close with the staff there, and they knew that I can count on them. That's right. It was Choices that I discovered art therapy. I love art. I learned that love to paint and make jewelry, and these activities brought me a joy that had been missing from my life for so long. They helped me heal, and still do. Choices also helped me find a partner of my own. Ooh, yes. I am planning on starting a garden pretty soon. My painting and affirmations are hanging on the wall so that I can see them every day. Now that I am healing, I love being able to encourage others. I am so grateful for the help I received at Choices and love sharing the important lessons that I learned while I was there. I learned that I am worthy of love and worthy of living. Thank you.
Can I give you a hug? Pretty powerful. And absolutely critical for our community to come together to support more women and families facing the scourge of domestic violence. So I want to thank Arlene for her bravery and courage, for sharing her story and her journey. Lutheran Social Services, the Franklin County Board of Commissioners, Commissioner Crawley in particular, Columbus City Council, Councilmember Remy in particular, the Office of Violence Prevention, Columbus Partnership, leaders of our business community. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and in addition to calling attention to this very important topic, we're taking action to address this issue with the seriousness and the urgency it deserves. We hosted Director Shack at Columbus Public Health about a month ago, an Office of Violence Prevention Town Hall, where Chief Bryan and Dr. Roberts shared some of the statistics of the violence in this community that was taking place. And the number of homicides, it's not even the end of October, and there are 22 homicides as a result of domestic violence in our community already this year. All of last year, there were 6. This requires the entire community's attention and focus and moving with a sense of urgency. We know it's not just a Columbus issue, it's across the country. In fact, it's a problem of growing significance around the world. According to the American Journal of Emergency Medicine, domestic violence cases increased by 25% to 33% globally in 2020 and 2021 during the earliest and most critical months of the COVID-19 pandemic. They remain high to this day. The United Nations has gone so far as to refer to violence against women and girls as a shadow pandemic in its own right. But make no mistake, domestic violence does not discriminate by gender. Data from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence shows that in Ohio, 38% of women and 33% of men are raped, stalked, or abused by a partner at some point during their lifetime. Many of our nonprofits and outreach agencies that are active on this front are continuing to report rising numbers of new cases, and they're rising more rapidly than in previous years. We're seeing a rise in domestic violence in all of its forms: parent-child, husband-wife, among siblings. I mentioned the dramatic increase in domestic violence homicides this year compared just to last year. This dramatic increase in the number of domestic violence homicides more than accounts for the increase in total homicides we've experienced year over year. So without these domestic violence homicides, we actually would have fewer homicides in our city than we did last year. This problem is compounded even further when you take into account the growing proliferation of guns in our community and in cities across the state. The dangerous and reckless gun laws that have been handing down to the ongoing efforts to block local efforts to enact common sense gun safety reform. Things overwhelmingly supported by folks from every walk of life and political party. Red flag laws to make sure that guns don't end up in the wrong hands of those who have been abusing members of their family so that they don't escalate into a homicide. Each year, millions of women report being threatened with a gun by an intimate partner. Evidence suggests that the risk of death from domestic violence is 5 times higher when a gun is present. This is especially concerning when you consider that of all the homicides that occurred in the city of Columbus so far this year, 90% have involved the use of a firearm. We're doing all that we can to bring down the violence through a comprehensive strategy that includes prevention, intervention, and enforcement. And when looking specifically at the prevention and intervention side of the equation, I'm proud to share that our community has several resources available to help. One of those resources is LSS CHOICES, a full-service agency operated by Lutheran Social Services with more than 45 years of experience assisting, protecting, and empowering victims of domestic violence throughout Central Ohio. In addition to emergency shelters, which I might add are the only shelters dedicated to domestic violence in Franklin County, Choices offers a 24-hour domestic violence crisis information and referral hotline. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, you can contact their team at 614-224-HOME or 614-224-4663. Choices also provides dedicated case managers, legal advocacy, counseling services, transitional housing, peer support groups, and even a kennel for pets. What's more, they're actively engaged in educating the community about the warning signs and dangers of domestic violence and how to connect with specific programs and services to get the help you need when you need it. That's why we're proud today to announce an additional $1 million investment that we're going to make as a city to support Choices in the operation of their newly expanded emergency shelters. Shelters they brought online in recent years to meet rising demand. The good folks at Choices have consistently put the needs of our community before their own. And it's our job to step in and help fill that gap so they can continue to meet this moment head on and provide life-saving services for residents and families across Central Ohio. Our friends from the county and the Columbus Partnership are here today as well to show how they'll be contributing to this collective community lift. We had the partnership out at the Police Academy several weeks ago to talk about violence and the business community's interest in stepping up their efforts to help us reduce violence and make Columbus safer and healthier in the years to come. And so we're so excited to have the leadership of the business community here with us, because it really takes all of us working together. Government, businesses, nonprofits, social services, the medical community, first responders, faith leaders, and all of you, our fellow neighbors, to make a lasting impact and lift up both the victims and survivors of domestic violence. We're really fortunate to have an incredible advocate for women and families joining us, a great leader of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. Please welcome Commissioner Erica Crawley.
Good afternoon. I bring greetings on behalf of the Board of Commissioners. I am your Franklin County Commissioner, Erica Crawley, and I have the honor and privilege of serving alongside my colleagues, President John O'Grady, as well as Commissioner Kevin Boyce. Before I thank my colleagues and others for being here, I just want to say thank you to Erlene for sharing your story. You are courageous, you are loved, you matter. And you know, it takes someone like you who is willing to step up into the light to share your story and how people end up in these situations, but you know, why you stayed, and not for us to be in judgment, but understanding that there are other people just like you who need help and support and a safe place to go, and what Choices was able to do for you and others. Thank you so much for your courage. And I want to thank Lutheran Social Services of Central Ohio and our partners at the City of Columbus, the Mayor, Councilmember Remy, to the partnership, to Rachel for being here today to highlight and bring awareness to this issue. Because we know the increases we are seeing in domestic violence occurrences and homicides requires a collaborative approach. In our state, we have made progress in modernizing our domestic violence laws, including the passage of House Bill 1 from my good friend, now Congresswoman Amelia Sykes, to when I was serving in the legislature and supporting also Aisha's law, sponsored by now Cleveland Heights City Council member, my former colleague, Janine Boyd, which would have added a continuum of protections for victims of domestic violence that are in extreme risk of lethal situations. Now that I am at the county, I am glad that we are in an institution that can support our local organizations as they seek to help our most vulnerable. Since before my time at the board, Choices has applied for and been the recipient of funds collected as fees that the county receives from the issuance of marriage licenses, additional costs of annulment, divorce, or dissolution of marriage actions and proceedings. In the 2023 appropriation, the amount was $315,000, and estimated for 2024 to be approved is around the same amount. In addition to the toll of the pandemic, there have been federal funds that have been cut from VOCA, the Victims of Crime Act, at a time of increased need, having caused a real and immediate threat to essential services provided by organizations like Choices to residents of Franklin County. Utilizing American Rescue Plan dollars, the county was able to award more than $359,000 to provide shelter and crisis hotline services, as well as counseling services, support groups, legal and community advocates, transitional housing, and domestic violence awareness and prevention education to domestic violence victims in our community. Last year, in 2020, the county provided more than $1.2 million of ARPA funding towards completing the construction and purchasing furnishings associated with Choices expansion for the shelter. In addition to these appropriations, the county's Office of Justice Policy and Programs, where my director, Rochelle Pride, is here, who continues to be the fiduciary agent and grant administrator for the county's Violence Against Women's Act. And they implement the Blueprint for Safety initiative, which was a $900,000 investment from the federal government to the county to deploy the implementation of that plan. The county continues to provide funding for VAWA, which includes victim and anti-stalking advocates in the courts, city attorney and county prosecutors' offices, domestic violence warrants enforcement and detectives in the sheriff's office, sexual assault and trauma care, victim advocates, sexual violence advocacy training, safe exchange for shared custody, and specific outreach to the Hispanic and Somali communities. The Franklin County Board of Commissioners is committed to standing with the survivors who are currently experiencing intimate partner violence and domestic violence situations. And as always, we have to come together to make sure that these investments ensure that all of our residents, each and every one of our residents in Franklin County, can thrive and not just survive. And so now I will bring up the President and CEO of Lutheran Social Services, Rachel Lustig.
Thank you, Commissioner Crawley, for your comments, your support of Arlene and our program work, and for your continued partnership and support. And thank you, Mayor Ginther, Councilmember Remy. Thank you so very much for your increased contribution in this year as we step up our efforts to use that expanded space to serve more people in our community who are currently experiencing the crime of domestic violence in their home. As Mayor Ginther mentioned, LSS operates Choices, the only domestic violence shelter in Franklin County. In the last 5 years, we have tripled our shelter to capacity. In 2018, we had 51 beds. By the end of this year, we will have 168 beds. And we are also strengthening our healing services to help people like Arlene to build a new life, free of violence, for themselves and their children. Unfortunately, the dramatic increase in demand for service has overtaxed Choices, causing a funding crisis. This contribution that the city has offered is critical to responding to this public health and safety crisis so that we can continue to provide life-saving services. We are grateful for the support to help LSS continue to expand our reach so that we can help more victims become survivors of domestic violence. Next, I want to say thank you to Arlene, and would you mind coming up here with me? Yes. You know this. Everyone deserves a home that's free of domestic violence. Yes. And I am so glad that you had the courage that after 33 years, that you believed in yourself enough to take a chance and to take a very drastic change in your life and to come to Choices. after enduring physical, verbal, and physical abuse. I can't imagine how scary and difficult that was. And I love that now your home is instead surrounded by beautiful artistic affirmations that highlight your worth because you are loved and worthy of that. And I am proud that LSS CHOICES, and I want to highlight your case manager who's here with us today, Nikki Cable, and the incredible team that helps people like Arlene to create that path toward a better life. I also want to say to anyone who's experiencing violence or controlling behavior in your home, our community has already lost 22 people this year to the crime of domestic violence. That is too many. If you are scared or intimidated in your home, even if your partner has not resorted to physical violence, your fear is real, and fear is protection. Your fear is telling you that a change is needed. No one deserves to be afraid in their home. Controlling, manipulative, violent behavior is not acceptable. Don't think this isn't that bad, or it could be worse. If you or someone that you love is in this type of a situation, seek help. Inform your loved ones. Call Choices Crisis Hotline at 614-224-4663 to find out your options and to develop your safety plan. Or call our great partners in the Columbus Police. Building a new life is scary. I know that going to a shelter is perhaps not what you hope for yourself. But it's not a step back. It's a new beginning. Just like Arlene described, a difficult but worth it step to a life free of violence, intimidation, control. You are worth that. We need you in this community. At Lutheran Social Services, we cannot do this alone. We've never done it alone. And I want to reiterate our thanks to the mayor, to City Council, to the city, and to the county for locking arms with us through this increased financial support and their push to continue to push us to do more. There are several longstanding partners to us that are in this room, if even only in spirit. The Columbus Division of Police, the Center for Safety and Healing, the YMCA, Columbus Humane, Adam H., the Community Shelter Board, and LSS's very own Health Center. And we are joined today by the Columbus Partnership, and there are many members who have been very generous to LSS CHOICES over the year. We want to thank you, and we want to ask each one of you to be a part of the solution, to help us to be there for people like Arlene. So I want to thank you again for your time. Thank you, Mayor Ginther, Councilmember Remy, for this contribution. I want to thank the county for their continued partnership and to the partnership. And I want to, as my final step, reiterate Choices Crisis Hotline number. It is 614-224-4663. Everyone, let's be a part of the solution. And now it is my pleasure to invite Councilmember Remy to come forward.
Thank you, Rachel, and good afternoon, everyone. Mayor Ginther, Commissioner Crawley, Kenny McDonald, and especially Arlene. Thank you for having the courage to share that story. Unfortunately, you're not alone, and we know this. but it's important that we have people like yourself to stand up and share your story so others can learn and have the courage to do what you did by reaching out to Choices. It's so powerful to hear that story, and I'm really thankful to be in your presence today. My name is Emmanuel, Remy, and I serve as chair of the Columbus City Council, chair of the Public Safety Committee. Public safety will and continue to be my number one priority. Whenever I speak with residents, no matter the neighborhood, their number one concern is public safety. Today, we are here to highlight a growing concern in our community regarding domestic violence, as well as announce our investment into solving this issue. It's very, very clear that COVID has had long-term effects on our community. And certainly the rise in domestic violence issues is one of those issues. Domestic violence is violent or aggressive behavior within the home, typically involving the violent abuse of a spouse or a partner. But as we heard from Erlene, it can come from a variety of sources: parents, siblings, roommates. It can be physical, emotional, psychological, or economic. None of it is healthy, and none of it is okay. Domestic violence is on the rise in Columbus, contributing to an overwhelming amount of gun violence and homicide cases in 2023. Rachel, I remember touring your former Choices location in a rather small Victorian house that served, 50-some beds, but it was they were squeezed in there. There was not enough space. And certainly the new facility, tripling the size, is imperative for our community. But as we hear today, additional investment is needed, and that's why I am very proud to join the mayor in making sure that we have an additional $1 million in funding. Lutheran Social Services has a proven record of helping victims and families of domestic violence. And as Rachel mentioned, there's so many other partners involved. In fact, we had the Columbus Humane Society come and speak at one of our hearings here last week to find out that how much of an impediment that can be. If somebody doesn't have somebody to take care of their pets, they won't come forward. They won't seek that help. But thankfully, for partnerships like the Columbus Humane Society, they're able to assist and provide housing for their pets while they're receiving the care that they need through Choices. As your public safety chair, I'm thankful to organizations like Lutheran Social Services for their investment into helping victims of domestic violence, as well as their leadership within this advocacy space. On behalf of my colleagues at Columbus City Council, I look forward to receiving and voting on future legislation to ensure this investment comes to fruition. And to anyone out there that is suffering from domestic violence, you matter, you are important, and you are worthy. And this leadership at the City of Columbus wants to help you. Please reach out to LSS for more information. You heard the numbers. They're available 24/7. We want to make sure that you have the care that you need. And so thank you so much for having me. I'll turn the podium over to Kenny McDonald.
Good afternoon. I'm Kenny McDonald, CEO of the Columbus Partnership. Let me echo the thank you and the gratitude for Arlene for sharing her story, and for the hundreds, maybe thousands of others that are experiencing the same thing that you stood up for today and every day. Thank you. Incredible, sincere gratitude for coming today. Communities are stronger, healthier, and more prosperous when they stack hands and do things together. And so often when we gather around these podiums, it's to announce something positive and numbers going up. But I would argue that we're never stronger than when we stack hands to make numbers like this go down and stick up for women and families and those in crisis in our community. And you see all sectors of our community doing that up here today. I want to particularly applaud Rachel and her team and those that stand alongside her on her team and her staff, the police officers, the social workers, the neighbors who stand up and say something when they see something. Good things happen when we work together. I want to thank you, Commissioner Crawley. The largest human services organization in our community is Franklin County, spending millions and millions to help those very people in crisis every day. I want to thank Mayor Ginther and Councilman Remy for standing up. You recognized a growing problem. You heard the stories, you saw the data. You're standing up and addressing a problem head on and doing something about it, again, to make this number go down. We will be encouraging our business partners across the community, small, medium, and large businesses, to get more involved. As Rachel said, there's a number of businesses very involved in this issue, and I have members that are, maybe this is the number one issue for them in their giving and their philanthropy. We want more to come to the table and stack hands with our government partners and our nonprofit partners to solve this critical issue. Let's lift each other up and move forward together, and thank you for having the business community at the table. Thank you, Mayor Ginther.
Thank you, Kenny. We're grateful for the private sector's investment in all the capital campaign work that's happened to make today's announcement a reality. Without that capital campaign and the additional beds, we wouldn't be able to make the announcement today for more resources and support. In essence, to be able to go from being able to support 140 women to 168. And you think of some of the statistics we've shared here today, that's a game changer and can change the stories of so many women and children in this community. So we're grateful for that. At our town hall forum, a lot of folks were saying, how do I get involved? How can I help deal with this issue of rising violence, both amongst our young people and in domestic violence situations? And we think it's really about awareness and making sure that if you have a friend or a loved one who may be in crisis, and even if you're not sure, to have the information available for them when they seek your help, when they tell their story, when they share what's going on potentially in their household. There's the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. The Ohio Domestic Violence Network at 614-781-9651. Also created a statewide map of programs and shelters. You can find that and more on their website at www.odvn.org. And obviously, as always, if you or someone you know is in immediate danger, call 911. It's vital that we refer victims and their families to the proper resources. And it's vital that we do all that we can to safely intervene to prevent these tragedies from taking place. We're grateful for all the remarkable individuals and organizations that are offering critical care and services to survivors of domestic violence. Let's continue to ensure that every victim of domestic violence knows that they are not alone. Let's continue to create a culture where abuse is never, ever tolerated, and where survivors are heard, protected, supported, and loved. Together, let's wrap our arms around those who have experienced domestic violence in their lives and cultivate a community of healing, recovery, and safety now and in the years to come. Could we have the Choices team and members of the board of LSS and Choices, could you stand up just so we could recognize you for being, in the trenches? Now we'll be able to help more women and families in our community in the future. Thank you all for being here. We'll stick around for one-on-ones. Does that make sense, Robin, or do you want us to handle them all here? What's the press feeling like? Would you rather do one-on-ones, or do you? Okay. All right, we'll stick around. Thank you. Thanks for.